Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. Dean, one of the big things that you notice is that there are different times in industries when consolidation is really a thing. And you're starting to see it in the streaming wars that are happening in that streaming environment. Is it actually going to happen inside the real estate industry? Dean, for a long time, we've spoken about the different business models, the things that go on inside of residential real estate. What are your thoughts about consolidation, and is now the right time for the industry to come together and actually to make some decisions on a bigger play on what we can all do?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I think that industry consolidation is an interesting topic that I think we have talked about a bit in the past. But I sort of, I think consolidation has been demonstrated in lots of other industries over time, whether it be banking, insurance, pharmacy, even food and beverage. Corner stores went to convenience stores, went to supermarkets. All that stuff's happened, and it happens for good reason, and it needs to happen at the right time. I guess for our industry, though, what would be the reason why you do it in the first place? And I think that we would all agree over the years, and depending upon your business size and your business model and all those things, but I come across a lot of smaller operators and mid-size operators and even larger guys that are finding it difficult to make some margin. Volumes of the marketplace has sort of been up and down. Customers' expectations are ever increasing. There is a multitude of different tech stack, bits of tech that you got to somehow weave it together. And in most cases, we're not taking advantage of the efficiencies that we could get by sort of potentially, looking for scale and consolidation. And we're not necessarily taking all of the first-party data that's incredibly valuable to us and being able to use it in any meaningful way. So I look at it and go, well, I think most real estate firms are probably working on 100-year legacy systems with a bit of refinement here and there. And there's still lots of manual processes, albeit, we know that there's a lot of automation on its way. So I sort of think to myself, and I've been a real agitator to say, I think that our real estate business model, for most, not for all, could do with a big reinvention. And so a big part of what we did was to test case that, because we knew that we were struggling even with 4 offices to get the sort of scale we needed to get sort of vertical integration and work out how to lift productivity, provide a better experience, and then also invest in the infrastructure we need to drive tech and AI, which is all about really giving the consumer a better experience, being more responsive and talking to them when they want to be talked to. So I think that, if we were to do an assessment of our industry and we got a whiteboard out and said, let's confront the brutal facts, right? What are all the things that don't work? And there'd probably be a pretty big list, right? Would consolidation solve some of those? Yes and no in some cases. But I think overall, done right, a consolidation piece, which is obviously, either an acquisition of one business or a merger of another, or perhaps even, I think there's room also for collaboration, even if you're not actually co-owned, right? Because, that you could potentially leverage and create infrastructure that the industry could leverage as opposed to just one business. So I think there's a lot of that said to be that. So I think done right. If you got consolidation right, and there's swings and roundabouts, but I think you got to be doing it because you want to actually get a better customer experience. You want to improve the business, so you want to be able to lift productivity and also then revenue. You'd also be wanting to lower your cost base, right? Because if you remove a lot of duplication and get some vertical integration and get people focused on their swim lane as opposed to people trying to do jack of all trades, I think there's some real benefit in that. And we've been testing and trialing, and it's not as easy as you think, to get those benefits, particularly because our industry is still wedded to infrastructure. When you've got offices and all those sorts of things, that's a pretty significant cost for a lot of people. So I think, increasingly though, people are thinking about how do I work more flexibly, more fluidly, et cetera. That'll change over time. So we've done a number of acquisitions and mergers, and while you sort of get yourself caught in some lease arrangements in the first instance that you have to sort of see through, there's a way in which you can start collapsing things and getting smarter with how we work. So I think there's no doubt, Josh, if you've got a really strong vision and you've got a view on how to do this, and you're prepared to make the investment, I think there's a massive opportunity for this sort of thing.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I remember it, probably my first exposure to it was almost like 20 years ago when Chemist Warehouse came to town, and they literally closed like 15 pharmacies in where I was living at the time, and they just opened up the superstore. It was the first time ever that you'd ever seen a superstore and, 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. trading 7 days a week, and like all of a sudden accessibility and all of the things that you could go to provide. But it took someone to actually come up with that idea and then to be able to navigate all the barriers to entry to make that sort of stuff happen. Now, the barriers to entry in my mind are ownership models, the cash that's available in marketplace, the conversations of people wedded to legacy, the idea about where we're going and what it actually looks like. How would you start consolidation as an industry? Is it more about like setting a vision that is really compelling towards people and actually showing the specific benefits of what you can do either around that cost rationalization and efficiencies, but also to the data plays that come off the back of that in saying that, hey, we probably don't need another real estate brand in residential real estate. What we actually need is a brand that people really know and that actually stands for something in the marketplace around customer experience and service lines that actually makes sense for profitability for different market centers. What are your thoughts about how we've moved that?
Yeah, look, there's a lot in that, a lot of content, and we could unravel it for the next hour. But in the time we've got, I think you've got to sort of get back to what's the problem you're trying to solve. Let's get clear about what the problem is and what we're trying to solve. And I think that for a lot of agencies, they don't think they've got a problem because for a lot of agents themselves, they don't. They just can't list and sell property. Right? Their job is pretty simple. It's a 6-week journey. It's a nurture relationship throughout the time that you're not actually doing the transaction itself. But at the end of the day, for most agents, they're happy to list and don't like change too much. This is the way it's worked. I don't want to change. And often when you start thinking about consolidation, you're looking for different ways to do things, and it will mean change. It's probably been one of the hardest things, the leadership premium required to activate and lead change and be able to work through when obstacles occur. Most people just don't. They stop at that point and go, it's not working. Oh, okay, we're not doing it. But to actually have a longer term vision around what you're trying to achieve and what the benefits are crucial. So yeah, you need to be clear about your benefits. You need to be clear about what the issues are. But Josh, I get phone calls a few times a week. I just had a meeting this week, actually yesterday, and I had a phone call with a gentleman on the phone also earlier this week, and their problems are simple. Their problem is, first and foremost, it's a pretty hard game running a real estate office if you don't have scale. You're trying to be jack of all trades. And you might be a great salesperson and a reasonably okay leader, but if you're diluting your focus and you're having to worry about cash flow, overheads, this, that, whatever, technology, you're not providing a great environment for people to want to be in, you're competing with them, all that sort of stuff, then you end up in an environment or a situation where, you're sort of carrying a lot of it on your own shoulders. And even if you do it well in one office, people get a bit excited and think, I'll go open 2 or 3, and then all of a sudden it's a whole different level of expertise and skill set that you need to have. And these instances I'm thinking about, the ones I've just had this week and one that I had prior to Christmas, and they're all very similar. I'm a great agent. I'm pretty burnt out by this. I've got no work-life balance. I'm worried about my health. My wife's got, she's not happy with me, and the business is nowhere near where it needs to be. And so you sort of get to it and go, well, if you're an agent who doesn't own a business, you probably don't understand that because you're just focusing on your own swim lane. But for most business owners, there's a lot of stress that goes with it, and a lot of late nights and balancing the books and cash flow. Markets up and down, and ATO, and the list goes on, right? So I think that people start out thinking that that's because of the way our model has historically moved forward. They think the natural progression is, if I'm a good agent, is to go and run another business, smaller business, in isolation as a silo, without any real sort of a sense of how you're going to get efficiency and scale and benefit from that, because otherwise your margins are so compressed these days. And especially you meet so many people. How many good high-performing principals have you got that just don't make their calls? And I know someone in particular who's got a gold mine, a river just flowing past of gold every single day, and can't get to the calls that they need to make because they're so busy with everything else. And so I look at that and go, Jesus, is that the definition of insanity, right? And I think our industry, by virtue of the franchising piece in particular, it's created silos, it's created small markets, it's created the whole, it's a bit adversarial. And I'm not saying franchising can't work, because it can. It's just a matter of a possible reimagination of that and a recalibration, because, the customer going forward really wants better services, right? They want better service. There's products that we could offer them that we're not. The customer wants to be spoken to at the right time, not when you think you should call them, only when it's relevant to them. And they want you to add value. But how many of us are able to do that and with a high level of responsiveness? Because when people these days want something, they sort of want it now, not when you can get to it. So I think what we've learned is, as we've moved into a more scalable business, we've been able to invest in things that can help with that level of responsiveness, that can help with knowing when to make that call, that can actually create a product, a unique product that actually gives a really great rate of return for our landlord or our vendor. That's a unique proposition that you can't buy off the shelf anywhere else, because you get enough scale, you can invest in things to think about how can I provide better products and services to the client. I mean, tenants, for example, right? I mean, a big part of all of real estate offices right now is about, historically, is a lot of time on repairs and maintenance and tenant servicing, right? And most property managers are bogged down in that, and it's often email based. There's a lot of new tech these days, but I think traditionally you've got a lot of that goes on, and tenants get a pretty bad experience, because they might not get someone return the call, and even when they return the call, then they've then got to get an approval from the landlord. Then you've got to try and contact the right tradie who's probably booked out for a week, or maybe if it's a nice days at the beach, whatever. The truth is, and then he's got to come out and quote it, and then he's going to charge you for that while he then goes and picks up the parts, and then he's going to come back. I mean, it's a long, elongated, antiquated process, right? So we realised that, and we went, well, now we've got a bit of scale. What can we do? So we thought, well, let's put in a tenancy concierge. So this is like a specialised team that handle all tenancy concierge, or all tenant inquiry. There's a bunch of AI we've built in, so there's immediate responsiveness and qualification. There's handoff to concierge. Concierge handles it. It happens really efficiently, and the tenant's happy because they're getting responsiveness and they're getting stuff done really quickly, right? Our next level of automation of that's going to be amazing. But what does it do? It means that we can employ people at a different type of person that's just a service-oriented person who's really good on the phone, who can make that stuff happen so the tenant gets a good experience over the phone, and also it gets a really efficient and responsive experience. So
you won't get that being the corner store.
You can't, because your poor property managers having to do 100 things in a day. They're basically doing leasing. They're doing dealing with maintenance. They're dealing with lots of stuff, and they're probably also sitting on the front desk at reception, right? So it's hard. We give these guys we set them up for failure, and we wonder why we can't grow past a certain point. And you might get to 150, 200 managements, and you're thinking, well, now what, right?
Because
the next level requires a different level of investment, and that's what happens. I met a guy 5 years in a franchise. He's got 150 managements. And he thinks that's amazing, and he hasn't really got any salespeople. He's doing 50 deals a year in the market, and he's stressed, and he's exhausted, and all these things, and he's got decent overheads. And I go, well, hold on. If you actually were able to roll into a consolidated piece, and you've got a tenancy concierge looking after all these things for you, then we free up those resources to potentially focus on chasing new business. Then we could grow your asset for you, and we'll take the stress away and make it easy, and probably make some money. But and then the best part is the tenant's really happy, right? So you get everyone in the process is getting what they need, as opposed to all these friction points. And it's only one example, I might add, because now, but that's a reimagination only enabled by scale. Now, I didn't even imagine that 3 years ago, but as we started to build scale, we started to go, oh, hold on, property management wages are going up, there's a lot of turnover, different things were happening, and we went, hold on, this is getting harder and harder to actually do well, and also we've got a number of problems in the process, so let's just get a whiteboard out and remap it. Tenancy concierge is the first step in a whole range of automations that will follow that, again, we wouldn't have thought of had we not consolidated and built some scale. And I guess, Josh, the last point I'd make is around effective data management, to make better decisions in your business. Right? We've got so much valuable first-party data. It's crucial for lead generation and managing a digital sales funnel. And I've got to tell you, people think they've got a CRM and that's what it's about. It's actually only part of the puzzle, right? And you don't understand that until you get enough scale to be able to invest in and put the right people in to help manage that for you. And I think people are starting to get that now. But so if you I guess I'm overwhelmingly saying I think this industry does require consolidation, and I think it's going to allow so many parts of the supply chain and the experience, and allow for succession planning and all of those sorts of things, and possibly strategic growth. So I think there's a smarter, more creative solution that exists, and it could be a blend of franchising and co-ownership and collaboration and merge. There's a range of it, right? So it's not one way to consolidate, but I think the industry is looking for it.